to the show. This the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.
What is up, you guys? Teller checking in for the UFC Orlando recap. Now, the teller was boots on the ground for this event, which means I did make the trip over to Orlando, watched the fights live, had a great time, had a great weekend. This was the first event I'd been to since the Jacksonville card, where we saw Khamzat Chimaev and Gilbert Burns throw down Volkanovski and the Korean Zombie and all that. So, first and foremost, fortunately enough, this event was another profitable event, which is always a great thing when you drive out to an event or you fly out to an event. You better make it a profitable one. You guys know the Jacksonville card didn't end up turning out that way. We had two split decisions go the opposite way, and it was brutal. It was a brutal drive home. This event, much different. Sunday morning, waking up, hitting up the Cracker Barrel, having a nice breakfast, getting a coffee in me. It was just a whole different vibe leaving this event compared to the last event. But I will say this. This event to me wasn't as exciting during the night when I was there compared to some of the other events I've been to. A lot of entertaining fights throughout the card, but maybe there just wasn't that buzz as far as the fighters in the card. Not a lot of big names. I mean, I shouldn't say that. We had Tuivasa, which we'll get to that fight here in a minute, but we had Kevin Holland and Wonderboy. That was ecstatic. The main event really delivered, but 14 fights. The main card started at 10 o'clock. And, the teller took a couple edibles midway through the event. And I don't know, this one just seemed a little bit different to me. But we're going to be getting to this event. Things I do want to mention. I had a lot of you guys come up to me, or a couple of you guys, which for me, it's a lot, come up to me and ask if you could take a picture with me and let me know that you guys watched the show, and just, coming up and just letting me know that you knew who I was. It was it's a very interesting feeling. I'll say that. I've had it happen to me a couple times, obviously at other events as well, but it's still surreal every time it happens. It feels like it's the first time. It's just, I don't take those situations for granted. You guys think that like I'm doing you a favor and I'm taking a picture with you, but really you're doing me a favor by walking up and letting me know you watched the show and just taking a picture of me. It just gives me a special feeling. I'll let you guys know that much. For everyone that came up and asked for a picture, please send those pictures to me on Instagram or whatnot. I want to see how they came out, and it's just like I said, it's special to me as well. So thank all you guys for that. We saw Terrence McKinney running around the arena. Now, you guys know Terrence McKinney's been known to get a little bit out of hand. You guys remember the story of him stealing somebody's pet gerbil at a house party and biting its head off. Police had to come, over on the West Coast up in Oregon. Things get a little crazy up there. Now, McKinney has gotten himself together over the years, but he seemed to be a little bit edgy. He was jumping around the arena. He was skipping around. If you guys were there, I'm sure you saw him because he was everywhere in that arena. And obviously, I'm just joking. He was having a good time. Nothing wrong with that. So it was cool seeing him. We saw a good amount of fighters at the arena. I was bouncing around. I mean, I was right down at the bottom. You guys know how the teller does it. I bounce all around the arena regardless. Regardless if I show up with the cheapest tickets in the arena, I'm sitting cage side. I'm bouncing over here. I'm bouncing over there. That's just how I've always done it. And I was sitting cage side for the Philip Rowe fight. I was right next to whoever it was, his brother or sibling. He was sitting right in front of me. Philip Rowe pointed at him, and a lot of his friends and teammates were over there. I mean, I was right there. Gregory Rodriguez was there. He was right in front of me. A lot of fighters were there. So it was a great time. And for all you guys that made the trip out to Orlando, hopefully you guys enjoyed the event. What else can I say about the event? But before we jump into this recap, we saw a little bit of a scuffle, a little bit of a fight in the crowd. For any of you guys that were there that saw it, some dude was getting into a little altercation with the girl. He called her a Karen. I guess she was some type of Karen. She smacked the beer. She reached behind the row, smacked the beer, splashed all over the people in that row. He was going crazy, cursing her out. In all reality, from what I gathered, he was probably in the right, but you guys know how it goes. When people see a guy yelling and cursing at a girl, everybody in the arena, everybody in that vicinity is going to side with the girl, and everyone started going after the dude. Some other dude started talking crap to him, who probably had no clue what was happening way down. He was standing up. I got a lot of the video on my phone, so I'll be uploading that probably here in this video if I can make that happen. If not, for sure on Instagram at MMA fortune teller _. But eventually, those two dudes almost got in a fight, and security had to run up and stop it right before it happened and escort the one dude out. But just remember that if you get in an argument with the girl, it doesn't matter if she's a Karen or not. When you go to these types of events, everyone that's watching, that's drunk and whatnot, has no clue what's going on, and they just see a dude yelling at a girl, and you're automatically public enemy number one. So be careful with that. All right, just a little warning for you guys there. So, if I could think of any other interesting things to talk about as we slide through this recap, I'll be throwing them out there to you guys. You guys know my arch nemesis Kevin Holland did taste defeat. We'll be topping off the recap with that discussion. So in the first fight of the card, we had Yasmin Yuragi taking on Estela Nunez. Yasmin came in as a big time favorite. You guys, we all were on Yasmin to win this fight, but I did note, be careful a little bit as far as where the line was. Estela Nunez, she came off that long layoff. She had 2 losses after making her return to fighting and stepping into the octagon. Put in the work over at American Top Team. I said, be a little bit wary about the line. Estela Nunez drops Yasmin in the first round, but Yasmin regains her wits there in that fight, and eventually took more than over that fight. She really did a great job, and eventually she got the finish over Estela Nunez, and Estela Nunez was beaten and battered. Her face was swollen up, and just a phenomenal performance by Yasmin, and I'm very excited to see how far she can push it in the division. Of course, fighting in the strawweight division, she's 10-0 now. She's undefeated, and I'm going to talk about 2 potential fights that I think that could be next for her. You guys let me know if you agree, or if there's a fighter that you think makes more sense. You guys always know you could hit up that comment section. I love to hear your guys' input. I think we can go a couple ways here. So first and foremost, you see Yasmin ranked 23rd in the strawweight division. You got Polyana Viana. We've talked about some potential matchups that she may have coming up next. I'm going to skip over Polyana. I don't really want to see that fight. I think that'd be a perfect setup fight for Yasmin to continue some momentum. But I'm actually wanting to see Yasmin push it a little bit further. I want to see her take on Karolina Kowalkiewicz. I want to see her take on a big name. We know Karolina at this point is essentially a gatekeeper. I know she's just won 2 fights in a row. If Karolina really wants to prove that she's legit, let her go out there and take on this up-and-coming fighter who's a phenom and get the victory, and then she could really make some buzz, because otherwise I'm not really fully buying into Karolina and her recent victories. And if I'm being completely transparent, I would love to fade Karolina in that spot. So that's the fight that I want to see. And of course, I think that it makes sense for the UFC because Yasmin has some real star power. She has the ability to represent Mexico on the women's side of things in the strawweight division. And I would love to see that fight. If you don't want to do that and you want to see kind of a prospect versus prospect type of fight, which I'm not sure if that's the route you want to go. You got 9-0 Piero Rodriguez, Venezuela versus Mexico. That would be a fun fight as well. But I'm leaning more towards the Karolina Kowalkiewicz fight. That's what I want to see. All right, how about Francis Marshall gets the knockout over Marcelo Rojo as the fight took place, as the fight kicked off in the beginning of the first round. Francis ate a couple shots, a little bit. Marcelo had a little bit of success, but Francis seemed extremely confident. He wasn't worried about getting tagged up. He was just focused on going forward and going straight through Marcelo Rojo. Started to land a couple big shots himself. Got the fight down to the mat at one point in time, and then in the second round, when things kick back off, Francis Marshall lands a big time shot and ends up getting a brutal knockout victory over Rojo. And I don't think we'll be seeing Rojo in the octagon ever again, if I'm being quite honest. Now, if you guys remember, Marcelo Rojo was on a 2-fight losing skid in the UFC coming into this fight. He's up there in age in the featherweight division. This was his last shot. Francis Marshall, we talked about the grappling abilities that he has. We wanted to see something more from him from the defensive side of things. Still think he needs to work on that. But now we're seeing the offensive striking starting to flash a little bit more. So that makes him even more of an intriguing prospect, in my opinion. He was right around a -185 favorite as the fight settled on Bovada.lv, and he delivered. So we'll go over and take a look at the featherweight division, and let's talk about a potential matchup for the young fighter who still needs to get a lot of experience under his belt, in my opinion. Let's remember now, he only has 7 pro fights, and Francis Marshall is 23 years old, still extremely young, and he's ranked 67th right now. okay, in the featherweight division. So, I mean, yeah. And that's where he should be ranked. He should be a ways back in the division because we don't want to see him fighting any of the top guys. We don't want him getting starched, getting knocked out, and then before you know it, he comes into his next fight, maybe he gets knocked out again, and you mess with this kid's head. Let him continue to work on his striking defense. And so you got Francis Marshall ranked 67th. Some fights that make sense for him. It won't be Derek Minner, I'll tell you that, because he is cut from the UFC, and you guys can expect a video coming out about that whole situation with James Krause and Derek Minner. You guys know I had both of them on the show, and that's definitely something worth making a video about. Chase Hooper coming off a loss, so you probably won't see that. That's a fight that I actually wouldn't mind to see, but I don't see the UFC making that fight right now. And we're going to take a little bit more of a jump up towards the top 50. Now we'll see Luis Saldana ranked at 49th here. I think that's a fight that makes some sense. I mean, look, we're not going to completely keep this kid in a padded room, right? Luis Saldana has some solid striking, and yeah, he possesses a threat on the feet to Francis, but I mean, anybody in the UFC is going to be a danger on the feet to an extent. I know Luis Saldana is tricky there. Luis still has to prove a little bit more to me with his takedown defense and whatnot. I think that's a fight that would play out to be exciting, and I think that's a fight that makes sense. You start scrolling a little bit higher up in the rankings, and I think that it's a little bit too big of a step up for Francis. So give me Luis Saldana versus Francis Marshall. That's a fight that I think does make some sense there. All right, so after that, we had Natan Levy take out Genaro Valdez. Now, this wasn't the most exciting fight on the card. Natan Levy, a well-rounded fighter, a cerebral fighter. He did enough to get the job done, mixed in some takedowns. Genaro Valdez is now, 0-2 in the UFC. He's in a tough state right now, but Natan Levy's been doing his thing, and he's smart. He's putting himself in a position to be solidified in the UFC, even though he might not be the most talented fighter. He's good at a couple different things, and he's getting some victories under his belt. And if you get enough victories under your belt, it's a little bit easier for you to stick around in the UFC. So now the UFC was not even handing him the mic. His performance wasn't good enough for him to get the mic and say anything. There was a lot of Israeli or Jewish fans in the crowd, so they were a little disappointed. They wanted to hear him hop on the mic. They had a couple Israeli fans behind me that were really having a good time there. So Natan Levy needs to step it up a little bit. I mean, he has some dangerous kicks. I think he needs to mix in a nice finish on his resume to really start to solidify himself as a guy that's worth talking about a little bit more. So Natan Levy, we're scrolling a ways back here, all the way to 77. Natan Levy definitely going to be looking to take a step up. You're seeing a lot of Bellator fighters ranked around here, so we're scrolling by all of them. A lot of PFL and Bellator fighters all mixed up around here. Now listen, I know Christos Giagos is coming off the loss to Thiago Moises, and I know typically we like to say a fighter that's coming off a win has to fight a fighter who's coming off a win. I don't think that's necessarily the case when you're talking about fighters that are towards the back of the rankings. I would love to see Christos Giagos versus Natan Levy. That's the fight that I want to see. I think that's a fight that makes sense in a couple different ways. I know Giagos has lost 2 fights in a row, but look at the guys he's fighting, Arman Sarukian and Thiago Moises. Let Giagos get a little bit of a step back in competition. He has proven time and time again that he's an exciting fighter. So this isn't a guy that's on the verge of getting cut, in my opinion. I know he's coming off a self-inflicted injury at home. He was working on a toilet bowl or something and cut his hand. Give Giagos the fight against Levy. I think that'd be cool, a cool fight. That's the fight that I want to see. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that? All right, we're talking some official action here. Jonathan Pierce versus Darren Elkin. Jonathan Pierce essentially dominates this fight. I mean, Elkins was throwing some big shots out there as well. He was never completely out of the fight. We know how tough Elkins is. I'm going to get to my official play here in a second. It was obviously mixed in a 2-team parlay. JSP was just stylistically a very bad matchup for Darren Elkins. Darren Elkins makes a living by dragging his opponent into deep waters. When they gas out, he'll take over the fight, or if their grappling's not up to par, he can submit them, he can ground and pound them, he can do a variety of things. JSP is very underrated as far as his wrestling and cardio goes. If he's not underrated, then okay, then you guys realize what's up, because he's up to par there. He's above par. He's sharp there. He needs to work on his striking defense and his striking for sure. This was a perfect fight for him to start to work on some of those things live in the octagon. one judge had this fight 30-26. So, I mean, if that's not domination, I mean, we got a 10-8 round sprinkled in there. I had a two-team parlay. You guys are obviously going to see who the other leg was there, but I mixed up Jonathan Pierce and RDA. I felt extremely comfortable with it. Threw 4 units at it. Together, it was minus 225. For any of you guys that want to talk crap about the play, one of my 3 plays, listen, I got an underdog play coming up that cashed. If you guys are leaving this money on the table, and if you're too good for these types of plays, that's fine. That's fine with me. You guys can do that. But this was a play that put a good amount of money in my pocket, and I was very, very keen on grabbing that play there. So again, we'll talk about the RDA fight in a minute, but I felt very safe taking Jonathan Pierce in that spot there. So Jonathan Pierce, in the featherweight division, he's starting to really make some buzz. And let's talk about what's next for him. So right now, Jonathan Pierce ranked the 20th ranked fighter, okay, in the featherweight division. Okay, that's no joke there, man. He's really working his way towards the top. He's going to be fighting some very dangerous men in the near future here. So real quick, we'll pull him up here. And let's see here. And you see him ranked 20th. You see, I there's a couple of fights that I would like to see him engage in here in the near future. The Nathaniel Wood fight is a fight that I like. He's ranked 2 spots above him right now. He's ranked 18th. We know Nathaniel Wood has been looking very sharp. He's coming off a big-time victory over Charles Jourdain. Nathaniel Wood's a guy that really likes to use his grappling and pushes the pace on his opponents. We talked about how JSP does that as well. I love to see those types of matchups. I want to see which man will prevail in those types of situations. And if I'm being honest, I think Nathaniel Wood could give JSP some problems on the feet if JSP doesn't start to sharpen some things up. But that's the fight that I want to see next. Both guys have been stringing off some victories as of recently. That's a fight that makes a lot of sense to me. That's the fight that I want to see next. And I think that'd be a real fun fight. All right, so Michael Johnson gets the victory over Mark Diakiese. Michael Johnson was a big underdog going into this match. You guys know he kind of has a reputation of just falling short in his fights, and I think that had a lot to do with it. If you really analyzed him or analyzed this fight going into it, we talked about it. I thought that Michael Johnson was relatively live in this spot here. Diakiese's been playing it very, very safe in all of his recent fights. He just plays it very safe. We know Michael Johnson is slamming on the gas. We know Michael Johnson has underrated takedown defense at times. I mean, he's scrappy. I thought there was real potential for Johnson to outpoint Diakiese here, and that's what he did. I didn't see Michael Johnson's brother at the event. I saw, I believe, his cousins or sisters. They were right behind me. They were going nuts. They ran down when the fight kicked off. They were screaming. So it's funny. Michael Johnson always has the family scattered around the arena. If you guys remember the story I told you about his brother was fighting the Nate Diaz fans. That big Nate Diaz versus Michael Johnson fight where Nate Diaz grabbed the mic and called out McGregor. It was crazy. You can actually pull it up on YouTube. Fight in the stands. You type in that matchup, fight in the stands, you'll see it. But Michael Johnson gets the job done, and it was a great thing to see. The crowd was going crazy for him, and it was well deserved because Michael Johnson should have had a victory in his last fight. So essentially, he's on a 2-fight winning streak right now. Or 3-fight winning streak. Should have had the victory over Jamie Malarkey. A lot of people thought he deserved it. I thought he did as well. So Michael Johnson on a 3-fight winning streak. 36 years old, but he's still grinding. He's ranked 41st in the division, and we're going to be talking about what's next for good old MJ here. And I think there's always a lot of fun matchups that you could set up with a guy like Michael Johnson because you know he's bringing it every single time out. All right, so right now we got Michael Johnson ranked 41st. All right, I don't want him fighting my boy Mike Davis. You know, we had the interview with Mike Davis. That's not the fight I want to see. Michael Johnson deserves the big name fights. And I'm scrolling up, and would I like to see him fight Conor McGregor? Of course I would, as you see McGregor ranked 34th. That's not going to happen, though. At least I don't think it is. You never know, though. You never know. I do think McGregor should take a little bit of a step down in competition when he returns. Michael Johnson, you know what? Let me not say that that's not going to happen because you never know. All right, Michael Johnson, people like him. He paid his dues for a long time, and he fights McGregor before you know it. His name is as big as ever. Clay Guida, we just saw that fight recently, right? Let's see here. Michael Johnson, yeah, he just defeated Michael Johnson in 2021, so we're not going to be seeing that. Matt Fravola, who's been on an absolute tear. That's the fight that makes sense to me. That is definitely the fight that makes sense to me. Matt Frevola has been doing his thing right now. He's ranked 31st. That would be a nice victory for Michael Johnson if he can get it. I think it would be a very fun fight to watch. That's the fight that makes sense to me. Give me Michael Johnson versus Matt Frevola. As far as both their next fights go, I don't want to see either man fighting anyone else. I know we just talked about potential matchups for Frevola after we recapped his last event. This is the fight that makes sense. This is the fight I want to see. And tell me what you guys think about that matchup there. Michael Johnson versus Matt Frevola. All right, Clay Guida gets a split decision victory over Scott Holtzman. A little bit of a lackluster fight there. A lot of Guida fans and family in attendance at the arena. You guys know I hung out with Guida recently. Had a shot with him and whatnot at a bare knuckle fight, bare knuckle event. Guida, a class act, a great dude. And I thought Scott Holtzman would have edged him here. And it was a close fight, but the crowd was going for Guida. That's going to help him get the nod there in a close fight. And who's Guida going to fight next? We just talked about Guida. Guida is ranked 33rd, has a big name in the game. If Matt Frevola doesn't get that matchup with Michael Johnson, Guida versus Frevola would definitely be a fun fight as well. So that's another one. I know I sounded a second ago like I was completely sold on the Frevola versus Johnson fight, which I definitely am. But if that fight doesn't happen for whatever reason, give me Frevola and Guida. Frevola's been looking very good, and he's a fun fighter to watch. And I think that any one of those matchups there with Frevola, with the Guida or Johnson, would be fun. So I'll just leave it at that. That'd be great. Angela Hill defeats Emily Ducate. My lone loss, as far as my official play goes on the card, it was a 3-unit play on Emily Ducate. I was very disappointed in Ducate's performance here. Very disappointed. Listen, I definitely understood the fact that Angela Hill could have went out there and took this fight when I put the bet together. I mean, the line that I got in this fight, I almost pick 'em odds. I felt comfortable with it. I knew there was a real possibility that Angela Hill would go out there and outpoint Ducate. Angela Hill is always a tough outing. She has all the experience in the world. But let me tell you something. The performance that Ducate put out there was absolutely atrocious. If you've been breaking down tape on her, if you saw her fight against Jessica Penne, if you've seen some of her fights over at LFA, the former LFA champion, this fight was not indicative of the fighter that she has been in the past. She was extremely gun shy in this fight. She was on the back foot. She was so hesitant. There was no activity coming out from her. She literally let Angela Hill walk her down and just use her as a punching bag. I was extremely disappointed in her performance. If she was going to drop the fight, it's one thing, but at least go out in your shield. Ducate has some serious power. She's a great counter puncher. At least meet Angela Hill a little bit more in the center of the cage and throw some heavy shots, try to clip her. I mean, if Ducate would have actually pressed a little bit in this fight, she could have took this fight, in my opinion, and that was not the case. Angela Hill went out there and shined on her. 30-27 on all three judges' scorecards. And Ducate, I lose a lot of respect for her. And at this point in time, even if she goes out there and puts on some amazing performances, I'm not going to trust her ever again, because to me, she now shows that she has some mental flaws in her game, and I'll just never trust her again, most likely. So, Angela Hill, who's Angela Hill going to fight next? I mean, she's fought everybody. She's a gatekeeper. She needs to keep stringing off victories, and if she's really going to get some buzz and get an opportunity against some of the top fighters in the division again, which is not out of the realm. It's possible, but we'll talk about her when she does that. Philip Rowe, he was an underdog when we talked about this fight here. You guys know I was on Philip Rowe as well. I picked him to win the fight. Definitely a regret that it wasn't an official play. It is what it is. Another later round finish for Philip Rowe. He's an excellent counter puncher. His striking's really coming around. Nico Price was probably ahead on the scorecards, or was kind of, yeah, he probably was. He was probably going to take this decision here. Philip Rowe gets to finish in the third round. A great performance by Philip Rowe. Like I said, as that happened, you see he's pointing right here. I'm sitting right there. One of his relatives, or I'm assuming, or one of his best friends, whatever. I mean, because you got to be pretty close, right? Right as the fight's about to kick off, to turn around and point at your boy or your brother or your cousin, whoever it was. He was just posted up by himself. It was pretty dope. I thought that was pretty cool. And then also a lot of fighters that knew Rowe were there rooting him on. A lot of big name fighters, fighters that I didn't even know would have been close with him, or fighters from different gyms. I was a little surprised to see that, but you know how it is. They all kind of know each other. And Philip Rowe's a good dude. I like what he stands for. I like what he's about, and I was happy to see him get that victory there. And you guys know the teller picked him to win the fight. And we definitely got to talk about what's next for Philip Rowe in the welterweight division, a division to me that has opened up more and more, obviously, as Usman has lost the belt, and Philip Rowe still a ways away, but a guy that's making some buzz right now. He's ranked 29th in the welterweight division. And let's talk about some upcoming possible matchups for him. All right, and not to cheat you guys, but there's definitely one that sticks out right away. The fighter that's ranked right above him, a fighter that I'm a big fan of, Jeremiah Wells, who's coming off that victory over Court McGee. Jeremiah Wells, one of the most exciting fighters to watch. We know Jeremiah Wells will bring the fight. He likes to strike, and we know Rowe will look for that counter shot. That fight has all the makings to be an exciting matchup, and I'm going to cheat you guys there. I'm going to cut right to it. Jeremiah Wells versus Phil Rowe. That's the fight that I want to see next. You guys let me know what you think. If you really want to give Philip Rowe a big name, he could try to get a fight with RDA, but I think RDA will now look to get a bigger name in the division. He's obviously up there in age. Well, let me not jump to that just yet. We'll be talking about him in a second. Give me Phil Rowe versus Jeremiah Wells. That's the fight I want to see next. Eric Anders gets the finish over Kyle Daukaus. This was an official play for me. It was a 1-unit stab on Eric Anders. I thought that the line was off for sure. I do regret not putting more action on it. It was a 1-unit play. I grabbed it at plus 170. I also threw some money on this right as the fight was kicking off. I saw Eric Anders as a plus 190. You guys know I was at the event. I was throwing some drinks back. Took that loss on the Ducate. Still didn't cash on my parlay, my 2-team parlay at the time, because the RDA fight didn't take place yet. So I was getting a little antsy, and you guys know I had action on every single fight, obviously, as I'm there live, but not official play type money. It's a little bit different, but I did double up on Anders, and like I said, grabbed them at plus 190 as well. And I don't understand why people were talking about Kyle Daukaus is going to run through Eric Anders. It made absolutely no sense to me. Eric Anders has serious power. If you saw him on the scales for the weigh-ins, he looked to be in the best shape I've ever seen him. Kyle Daukaus was coming off a knockout loss to the Georgian, and who we'll be talking about next, Roman Dolidze. And Kyle Daukaus, he's a good fighter, but definitely he's been run into some trouble, and his stock has plummeted. And I was all over at Eric Anders here at almost 2-to-1 dog odds. And Eric Anders, if you don't realize, he might not always get the job done, but he has serious power. He's very tricky on the feet with his southpaw stance. He gives guys problems. His takedown defense is underrated. He's a beast. I saw people telling me, commenting that, oh, Eric Anders doesn't have any finishing power. You guys have no clue what you're talking about. He throws some serious oomph into his shots, all right? So you guys were off on that. And Eric Anders in the middleweight division now, your boy, he's ranked 38th, still getting plenty of respect. Plenty of respect here. And as I said, he gets to finish in the second round, and we will run over to the middleweight division, and we're going to be talking about what's next for him. Another division that is very, very open, okay? Very open. If Eric Anders can start to string off some victories, he has a name in the game. You could easily see a guy like Eric Anders start to make some buzz. Finally gets that W going there. You got Armin Petrosian just coming off a victory right above him over AJ Dobson. That's a fight that I would not be surprised if we saw. Rodolfo Vieira coming off a loss, so most likely not, but that is a fight that I would have liked to see. I don't know if they'll do that. Chris Curtis just got that victory over Vieira. If they do that fight, I would love to see it. If Eric Anders could stuff the takedowns, which I think he would give Vieira some real problems on the feet. And then you got Andre Petrosky. Andre Petrosky really starting to make some buzz. That's a fight that I would like to see. I would like to see Andre Petrosky versus Eric Anders. I think that's a fight that makes perfect sense. Both guys coming off recent victories. Petrosky still needs to really carve out a name in the UFC for himself. He's working on that. Eric Anders has done that. Eric Anders is looking good. I think Eric Anders is a real threat to Petrosky. That's the fight that I want to see next. Andre Petrosky versus Eric Anders. You guys let me know what you think about that. I think that would have all the makings to be an exciting matchup. All right, so we cash in on Eric Anders at dog odds. Roman Dolidze defeats Jack Hermanson. Now, I'm very happy I avoided this as an official play. I was very close to pulling the trigger on Jack Hermanson when the line was lower early in the week. I didn't want to fade Roman Dolidze here. He's shown that he has some serious power. We know he can grapple as well. And I had some questions about his cardio. That was really the only thing. I thought that Jack Hermansson definitely had the edge as far as the cardio goes. But Roman Dolidze is dangerous, man. The way he had his leg locked up there and flattened him out and finished him, that was nasty. That was a major feather to that Roman Dolidze can put in his cap here. And in the middleweight division, Roman Dolidze has some serious potential to work his way towards the top. He's now, let's talk about this real quick. He's 12-1 as a pro. He's 6-1 in the UFC. He's on a 4-fight winning streak. All right, after that Giles loss, he's been doing his thing. 2 knockouts in a row. Or 3 knockouts in a row, but 2 knockouts in a row going into this fight now makes it 3. Jack Hermansson, Phil Haas, and Kyle Daukaus all under his belt in his last 3 fights. Those are some respected names. All right, so Dolidze definitely has some potential to really shake this division up. All right, so let's find Dolidze here. Roman Dolidze currently ranked 10th in the middleweight division, man. There's going to be some fun matchups for Dolidze in the near future as he starts to fight the big names in the division. Andre Nunez, the stud jiu-jitsu player. Dolidze showing some elements with his grappling game. That's a fight that would really make some buzz, and the winner of that would be pushing their way really, really towards the top. If that fight doesn't happen, Derek Brunson is looking for a fight. He's coming off a loss. You do maybe Brunson versus Dolidze. I could see the UFC starting to try to make Dolidze have a statement fight in his next matchup and work his way towards the top. I think that he has shown he's a real contender to fight some of the best guys in the division, and the UFC needs the middleweight division to really have some more of those guys funneled towards the top. So I could see that happening. I could see Dolidze getting Brunson next. Otherwise, I see them doing a matchup with Nunez, and the winner of that just being automatically tossed towards the top. So those are the 2 fights I'm looking at. If I'm being selfish, just give me the Nunez fight right away because I'd be super excited to see that take place. If he fights Brunson, I think he knocks Brunson out. I think that's a really bad matchup for Brunson, and wouldn't mind seeing that as well. I like Brunson, but Dolidze is starting to grow on me as far as being entertaining in the division, and I think that's a fight that would be cool there. So again, you see Dolidze locking those legs up, and I knew once he had those legs locked up, everybody was screaming for Hermansson to squeal out. I knew the fight was over instantly. There's no way he was rolling out of that, and you saw him just shelling up, and that fight was definitely on its way to being stopped, and that's exactly what happened there. So, all right, still got a couple fights to talk about here. 4 fights. All right, Sergey Pavlovich gets the knockout over Tai Tuivasa. This fight was absolutely crazy as it began to kick off. You already knew that was going to happen. Tai Tuivasa, a giant fan favorite. The entire crowd was booing Pavlovich like crazy, booing the Russian. Everybody was going crazy for Tuivasa. The bell rings, and Tuivasa gets absolutely steamrolled by Pavlovich. Pavlovich is a serious contender to the title in the heavyweight division. The guy's a mammoth of a man. He's a mammoth of a man. He's a giant dude. He has serious power. The technique on his striking is really getting refined. He's super dangerous. What he just did to Tai Tuivasa, don't underestimate it. I know we just saw Tai Tuivasa come off a knockout loss against Cyril Gane, one of the best guys in the division. Don't take that for granted. Tai Tuivasa is extremely tough. Sergey Pavlovich was landing some pinpoint shots with some serious power on them. He's not scared of nothing. His lone loss came against Alistair Overeem, one of the GOATs. That was in his UFC debut. All right, Pavlovich has now rounded himself out to be one of the most dangerous men in the heavyweight division. He's currently ranked the fourth ranked heavyweight fighter on Tapology, and God, I would love to see him match up with Francis Ngannou. That's a fight that I want to see so bad. Him and Francis Ngannou, imagine them storming at the gates. Oh my God, that fight's ending within a minute. That fight's ending within a minute, and somebody's getting knocked out one way or the other. All right, you got the African and the Russian. That fight would be absolutely crazy to see those 2 men locked in a cage. Imagine them fighting in the Apex. I don't want to see that there. I mean, I want to see it in a big venue, but imagine in the Apex with no one in the crowd and in that small cage. That would be surreal to see it in real life, to see in person. And Pavlovich right now, he's ranked 4th. Nobody officially matched up, right? There's the talks about Ngannou and John Jones, Cyril Gane. There's been some buzz about who Gane's fighting next. Aspinall's injured. There's some buzz about what Curtis Blades being the backup fight for John Jones if the Francis Ngannou fight doesn't happen. Can we get Cyril Gane and Sergey Pavlovich next? Is that all right with you guys? Let me know. Comment below if we could see that next. Would love to see that. I want to see how Sergey performs against a guy that's a little bit more technical on the feet. A guy that makes him work a little bit more to land those big shots, unlike Derek Lewis and Tai Tuivasa, who come straight at you. So that's the fight that I would love to see. I would want to see next. I mean, I really want to see the Ngannou versus Pavlovich fight. I don't think that's going to happen next, though. Again, a lot of details and variables going in to what's going on with Ngannou, but what a fight that was. And obviously, we were on Sergey Pavlovich to win that fight. All right, now I got to clear something up here. All right. Matheus Nicolai defeats Matt Schnell. And if you guys run the tape back, I know what I said. I definitely was clear, but maybe I could have been a little bit more clear. When Matt Schnell lost his last fight, or when he won his last fight, against the very dangerous Asian fighter, the Eagle, Sumadarji, when he won that fight, of course, I picked Sue to win that fight, as did almost everybody. He was a big favorite. Matt Schnell, he follows me on IG. He's cool, man. He comments, and we had him on the show. He's just a cool dude. I promised Matt Schnell that I was picking him in his next fight regardless. I said, I got you in your next fight. It was kind of a joke. I stand behind my word, and that's why I picked Matt Schnell to win the fight. I thought I kind of made it obvious that was going to be a tough matchup for him. You know what I mean? I thought I was clear there. I'm sorry if I wasn't. Sorry if any of you guys didn't really understand what I was saying there. Schnell was a major underdog, and I was really hoping he could have won there. He showed some real toughness, but he was outclassed by Nikolau. And listen, guys, come on. Matheus Nikolau was obviously the favorite going into that fight. And you know what? In retrospect, it was a learning lesson. I won't do that anymore. I've always been very... I've usually have never done anything like that, and I apologize again for not being as transparent, because we want to keep it professional here, but sometimes it's fun when you're joking around with the fighters and whatnot, and I'm not trying to make an excuse, but I thought that you guys all knew that Nikolau was definitely most likely to get the job done. No official action. I wanted nothing to do with that fight after I picked Matt Schnell and whatnot. In retrospect, hopefully some of you guys mix Nikolau in a parlay and capitalize on some money there. Nikolau is a major threat to the flyweight title. Look at him as a young boy here. We know he fought in the UFC, right? And then left, made his way back. He is now on a 4-fight winning streak. All right. His lone loss in the UFC was against Dustin Ortiz way back in the day. That's, if you remember that fight, he got hit with the big shot. Dustin Ortiz disappeared, but that was a tough loss for him, but he has rebounded in a major way. He is now taking out some legit names: Tim Elliott, Manil Kape, David Dvorak, Matt Schnell. He is deserving of a big fight. He's ranked 5th, and that's what's going to happen now in the flyweight division. Matheus Nicolau is going to get a big fight next. He is, one way or another. We don't want to see him fighting in the women's flyweight division because he'll start killing girls. But all right, so you see him ranked here, 5th in the division. You see a lot of guys already matched up. Oh man, would I love to see Matheus Nicolau versus Pantoja. I do not believe they have never fought. I don't believe they've ever fought. No, they haven't. Two fighters that remind me of themselves very much so. Two dangerous strikers. Two fighters that have very, very underrated and dangerous Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That's the fight I want to see next. They're both open for fights. Make that fight happen. The winner of that is essentially next in line after all these fights take place, right? We got Figueiredo and Moreno fighting for the 4th time. Kai Kara France versus Alex Perez. That's a big fight as well. The winner of Pantoja and Nikolau, they would be next in line for the belt. So that makes all the sense in the world, right? That's the fight to make. All right. Now, RDA comes through, gets the victory over Brian Barbarena. I was supremely confident that that's how the fight was going to take place. RDA is just such a beast, man. He is the Brazilian gladiator. He is a fighter that just is constantly chopping on wood in the gym. He's constantly just working on his craft. He's becoming constantly a better version of himself. Now, yeah, he is playing around with Father Time. He's getting up there in age, but I haven't seen him take a step back, so I'm not doubting him yet. Now, in the near future, when he gets matched up with some of the young guns in the division, yeah, you might want to look to fade RDA, but in spots like this, you have to capitalize and take the money there. So that's exactly what I did. We already talked about the 2-team parlay. I was all over it. Brian Barbarena snuck off some victories against some older guys that really took a deep jump off as far as where they're at in their careers. You know, Robbie Lawler, a couple other older fighters, and defeating Matt Brown. You know what I mean? So his stock was a little bit inflated in my opinion, and I was all over RDA, so we took that money and we talked about it. We got to talk about who's next for RDA because he's now fighting again in the welterweight division, which I think is a good move for him, right? He's tired of doing that weight cut. I know he's had some tough times fighting the top guys in the division, but remember now, he was fighting the top guys. He wants one more shot to run towards the top. I mean, you're not going to see him ranked so high because he hasn't been really putting work in the division as of recently. So let's see here. He is currently ranked the 26th welterweight fighter. You see him here. Time is ticking for RDA, so I would like to see him. Like I said, I would like to see him have one more shot to really push towards the top quickly. So I want to see him fight, maybe Jack Della Maddalena, who I know hasn't fought in the UFC a lot, but a fighter that really has some big time respect as of recently. If he gets a victory over him, you know it's the truth. But maybe even more so Randy Brown. Randy Brown would be a good matchup. Randy Brown has been really stringing off some victories. RDA could steal his steam. And Randy Brown is a legit welterweight, a giant frame. If RDA can get a victory over him, that really proves something there. So that's a fight that makes sense to me. Give me Randy Brown versus RDA. I like that fight there. All right. And that will take us to the main event where my boy Wonder Boy came through and styled on my arch nemesis, Kevin Holland. Now, you guys know I always keep it real with you guys. The little post here, y'all must have forgot because, I picked Wonder Boy to win the fight. He was essentially, he settled in as a big underdog, but I was on Wonder Boy. I thought it was a dangerous fight for him. If he could have potentially got clipped. He felt some adversity in the first round, but as long as he avoided that knockdown, I saw Wonder Boy taking this fight because all signs were pointing towards Kevin Holland not holding him down and not really using the ground attack, which, to be honest with you, even though Kevin Holland had some opportunities down there, that wasn't solidified that he could have just held Wonder Boy down. Wonder Boy was working on his takedown defense. He talked about that. He's been working on that a lot with guys like, his brother-in-law Weidman and a couple other people, but I want to give major props and respect to Kevin Holland for making this a fun fight. When he was on top of Wonder Boy, he stood up, let him up, and Wonder Boy returned the favor later on. It was a good fight, and Holland's a tough dude. He ate a lot of shots, and he survived for the time being until he couldn't get up from the stool after the fourth round, and Thompson was just lighting him up late in that fight. I know Holland was hurt and compromised. Stephen Thompson had a broken left hand as well, so no excuses. And now Thompson, we can talk about some exciting matchups for him in the welterweight division once again, which was not the case recently, right? As he was coming off 2 losses in a row, he's still ranked towards the top, ranked 6th. I don't believe he wants to fight any of these tough wrestlers towards the top. I think that we know what will happen there. People have talked about Wonder Boy versus Conor McGregor for a return fight for McGregor. I think that would be a lot of fun. I don't necessarily think that's going to happen. I don't know. I would like to see it. I'm trying to find a fight for him. I mean, he already lost to Bilal Muhammad. We have Edwards and Usman. Essentially, that's the rematch coming up. Covington versus Wonder Boy. We do not want to see Covington just maul him like a bear and eat him alive. Sean Brady's coming off a loss. You got Magny and Burns already locked up. Not a lot of fights stick out, man, for Wonder Boy. He might have to sit around and wait unless you want to throw him in there with Pereira. Pereira would be a very, very fun fight. And in fact, that's the fight that I want to see next. Pereira would make a very, very fun matchup for Thompson, and it's a very winnable fight for Thompson. And then Thompson can look to try to make one last run, if you want to say that. But we all know what will happen when he fights the guys at the top of the division. So give me Michel Pereira versus Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Shout out to Wonderboy for going out there and handling my lightweight and Kevin Holland. And and I was, like I said, I was boots on the ground at the event. I was walking around. I was hoping I was going to bump into Holland. I was in downtown Orlando after the fights, before the fights. I was running the show. I had the squad with me, and I was like the Diaz, the Diaz crew, the Diaz army. I was marching around hoping to bump into Holland and the boys, but they were just nowhere to be found. So it was what it was. And obviously just poking some fun. Hopefully you guys don't take me too serious there. You guys know it's not like that. But so that wraps up UFC Orlando. Another profitable event. Profit roughly 1 unit, a little bit 1 unit and change. But again, we had the tough Ducate loss, and a profitable event is a profitable event. Let's be clear there. A profitable event is a profitable event. And a unit for me is good money. So paid for the whole trip. Like I said, I put some money in my pocket. Hopefully all you guys made it another profitable event for yourselves. And now we take a look ahead. We got Magomed Ankalaev throwing down this upcoming weekend. I've said that he's going to be the future light heavyweight champion. I've said that for a long time, so I'm excited to talk about his upcoming matchup. And that prediction video should be uploaded here by the end of the night. All right, guys. Again, go catch me on Instagram because I'm going to be throwing up a bunch of content on my Instagram related to me being at the event. All right, so you guys go check me out on Instagram, MMA Fortune Teller _. I'm on Twitter at the MMA Teller. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate all you guys so much. Signing out, Teller.
Welcome to the show. This the MMA Fortune Teller. Yeah.
The MMA Fortune Teller.
The teller.